Imagine a nation built on an empire of oil, valued at over $1 trillion. Now, picture that empire suddenly crumbling overnight. On December 1st, everything changed. Ukraine launched a daring, strategic strike. The target? The heart of Russia's economic power, the Druzhba pipeline. This wasn't an ordinary explosion. It was a precise surgical blow. Remote-controlled detonations tore through a vital section of the pipeline near a quiet Russian village. The location was no accident. It revealed how deeply Ukraine had penetrated Russia's logistical heartbeat, beyond front lines, and into the core of its infrastructure. Instead of tanks and bombs, clever military spies used sophisticated explosives. They added combustible mixtures to maximize damage, making repairs a nightmare. The blast was not just a tactical hit, it was a direct attack on Russia's lifeline. Imagine the sound of metal tearing, the smell of burning oil filling the air, the jolt of shock traveling through the ground. Druzhba wasn't just a pipeline, it was the backbone of Russia's economy. Stretching over 4,000 kilometers from Belarus to Germany and Hungary, it delivered a third of Russia's oil exports. For years, Putin used it as a weapon, wielding energy like a club over European nations. Now, that weapon was snatched away. An official from military intelligence made it clear. This was not just about cutting supplies. It was about strangling Russia's war machine. Oil fuels armies, tanks, drones, missiles. Without revenue from Druzhba, the Kremlin's military ambitions face a brutal slowdown. As the pipeline burned, so did the Kremlin's reputation and financial power. This attack marks a new phase. Previously, Ukraine targeted military pipelines near Moscow, aiming to cut off fuel for tanks and planes. But now, the war has shifted into a global strategic chess game. Russia's internal borders no longer guarantee safety. Even hundreds of miles inside its own territory, vital arteries are vulnerable. The geographer's maps no longer offer reassurance. For ordinary Russians, this means more than just economic trouble. It's a warning that their government cannot shield them from the chaos. The impact ripples across every street, every station, every gas station. Already strained by drone strikes damaging refineries, Russia faces a crisis of fuel shortages. Gasoline queues snake through cities. People are forced to steal fuel from their own vehicles. The smell of burning fuel and a rough touch of empty tanks evoke despair. But the chaos doesn't stop there. With pipelines severed, Russia turns to rail transport, but Ukraine's forces are striking there too. Sabotaged tankers burst into flames, trains derail, and fuel supplies become a nightmare to deliver. The army needs fuel. Without it, tanks freeze, trucks stand still. The entire war effort slows dramatically. Soldiers on the front lines feel the pinch, as the economy's collapse starts to bite. Behind it all stands Transneft, Russia's state pipeline monopoly. Once considered untouchable, their systems were thought impenetrable. But now, the attack exposes their vulnerability. The Kremlin's trust erodes in a company that cannot protect the nation's core energy arteries. Management faces upheaval. Repair costs soar into the billions. Legal battles unfold as Russia's oil exports tank. This attack is more than just a supply chain disruption. It's a direct blow to Putin's political power. His narrative of a resilient economy crumbles as the pillars of his energy strategy collapse. The once untouchable empire starts to fracture, revealing the fragile truth: Russia's economic fortress has cracks. And as the oil flow stops, so does the money that fuels his war, threatening to bring his entire regime to its knees. The explosion ripped through the night sky, a thunderous boom echoing across the frozen Ukrainian borderlands. Can you imagine the ground vibrating beneath your feet, the acrid stench of burning fuel filling the air? In a daring move on December 1st, Ukraine struck Russia's Druzhba pipeline, turning Putin's oil lifeline into chaos. Previously, we saw how the Druzhba pipeline explosion hit Putin's financial heart, crippling his war funding. Now, Ukraine vows to keep the pressure on. Have you ever wondered what it feels like when an empire's lifeblood starts to leak away? Ukraine's special forces didn't just blow up a pipe. No. They surgically severed Russia's economic jugular. Near the village of Kachinsky-Vyselki, on the Taganrog-Klepetsk line, they deployed remote-controlled explosives. The asphalt cracked from the blast, flames roared upward, devouring the night. But it wasn't random. This spot proves Ukraine's reach deep into Russian territory, paralyzing logistics far from the front. The detonation wasn't brute force. Ukrainian intelligence mixed in extra combustibles, turning repairs into a nightmare. Steel twisted and melted, the pipeline cursed with chaos. Sound of metal groaning under impossible heat, smell of scorched earth lingering for miles. This wasn't a skirmish, it was precision warfare against Russia's oil spine. Druzhba? It's the giant of pipelines, the longest in the world at 4,000 kilometers. Stretching from Belarus to Poland. Germany to Hungary. Europe's main supplier of Russian crude, the weapon Putin wielded for energy blackmail. That artery pumped 1.4 million barrels daily, 70 million tons yearly. 1/3 of Russia's exports. When it blew, it wasn't steel that shattered, it was Putin's pocketbook. Touch the slick residue on the ground, feel the loss of billions siphoned away. A Ukrainian intelligence official spelled it out clear. Russia's oil veins, funding tanks, bullets, bombers, will burn as long as they assault Ukraine. Stop the invasions, or watch the money dry up. Halts planes from taking off, ammunition from loading. No fuel? Gears of war grind to a halt. Complete stop. Is this the end of Russia's military machine? What happens when the vault's empty? This assault escalates a brutal campaign. Not the first on Russia's oil web. Before, near Moscow, a 400-kilometer fuel line for the military erupted. Ukraine targeted refineries, now the veins. Undermining Russia's secure doctrine. Borders mean nothing now. Druzhba's fall reshapes the map. Russia unsafe, even in its heartland. For citizens? The state fails to shield you. Economically naked. That whisper erodes Putin's throne. Feel the chill of uncertainty, the sting of betrayal from your own leaders. Impact? Catastrophic. Full force. Druzhba pours that oil flood. Shutdown? Millions lost each day in export cash. Putin's budget feasts on it. $60 cap per barrel? Still buys Shahid drones from Iran, shells from North Korea. Tap off now. Feel the void where war dollars flowed. Can't sell? Storage fills. Siberia's well shut. Frozen tundra won't forgive. Reopen? Months, years, billions wasted. Russia's industry crippled forever. 16.5% rates, 30% inflation. Deficit? A yawning abyss. Black hole swallowing everything. Druzhba mauls more than money. Putin's global fist weakens. Oil to Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia. Allies like Orban balked at EU sanctions, addicted to cheap fuel. Ukraine rips that card. No more silent deals. Hear the allies squirm, feel the political heat rising. Attack signals to Europe, Russia unreliable. Supplies fragile. Trust shattered when internals collapse. Oil flow halts, costs soar for voters. Orban faces revolt. Pressure mounts to pivot from Putin. Sanctions now ironclad. No more Russia to soften blows. Putin's diplomatic forts crumble. Ukraine weaponizes energy, trapping him. Is this Putin's worst fear, his friends turning foes? Dominoes fall harder. Civilian military logistics wrecked. Fuel crisis ignited, potential social inferno. Pre-explosion, Russia starved for gasoline. Drone strikes mangled refineries. Oil extracted, but no diesel, no gas. Crimea, annexed Jewel, hit rationing by September 2024? Wait, by 2023? No. The text says 20 pop 5? Wait, double check, September 2025. But adapt as is, keep accurate, September 2025. Crimea, logistical hub, can't fuel citizens. Night steals in Yalta, footage leaks. People siphoning from cars. Gasoline thieves in a superpower? Smell of desperation, roar of generators failing. Societal rot deeper than dollars. Druzhba worsens the plague. Pipelines down, shift to rail. But Ukraine strikes there. Perm tankers? Sabotage. Not accident. Flames engulf trains, roar echoing. Triple choke, pipelines crippled, refineries busted, rails ablaze. War front starves for fuel. Tanks idle, trucks halt. Putin's machine out of control. Soldiers feel it. Fuel queues nationwide. Cost of war? Not just deaths, but empty tanks at every pump. Touch the empty gas cans, hear the engines sputter silent. Most humiliating? Transneft's fall. State giant, untouchable guardian. Failed to shield lifelines from Ukrainian shadows. Reputation in ashes, management ousted soon. Kremlin distrusts. Repairs drain budgets. Penalties from failed deliveries, lawsuits swarm. Legal noose tightening. Is Transneft's reign ending? What cracks next in Putin's facade? War's narrative? Russia robust under sanctions. Druzhba shatters that lie. Undermines everything. Oligarchs flee, panic seeps. But the chain of chaos just begins. What blow comes next? The inability to export Russian oil now threatens the very core of its economy. Without a place to store excess oil, the nation's Siberian wells will soon be shut down. Reopening them after shutdowns could take months, even years, costing billions of dollars. This scenario spells a crippling blow to Russia's oil industry and aggravates a fragile economy already plagued by soaring interest rates of 16.5% and inflation over 30%. As oil production halts, Russia's financial crisis deepens into an unmanageable black hole. The once powerful pipeline network, Druzhba, has struck more than just economic damage, it has delivered a severe blow to Putin's geopolitical influence. The pipeline was a strategic tool for control over Europe, supplying oil to Hungary, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and other countries in the region. For years, these nations relied on cheap Russian energy, especially Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, often causing friction within the European Union over sanctions on Russia. Now, Ukraine's strike shatters that silent pact. It rips apart Putin's main leverage, the promise of reliable energy. How can Russia be trusted when its pipeline infrastructure is so vulnerable? The attack sends a clear warning: Russia's role as a steady supplier is over. Oil shipments are about to face disruptions that will strip these countries of their energy security. Reduced flow? Higher costs? These consequences will be immediately felt by voters everywhere, from Budapest to Prague. The damage isn't just economic, it's political. Leaders like Orbán will face mounting pressure to distance themselves from Russia's influence. Putin's plan to use energy as a diplomatic weapon is crumbling before their eyes. The question remains, how much longer can Putin hold on to his allies when his energy arsenal is now a fragile, burning ruin? The answer will determine whether Russia's grip on Europe can survive this devastating blow. Previously, the disruption in oil supply forces European allies like Hungary into sourcing pricier alternatives. Higher fuel prices hit their voters hard, pressuring leaders such as Orbán to pull away from Russia. Putin once leveraged these ties to dodge or weaken sanctions. Imagine this shocking revelation: what if Russia's oil lifeline wasn't just severed, but transformed into a weapon backfiring on its own creator? This twist flips Putin's energy dominance into a chain reaction, eroding his global leverage, leaving Europe scrambling and Moscow in chaos. Can Ukraine's bold strike truly dismantle an empire built on black gold? The air thick with smoke from shattered dreams, the acrid tang of burning ambition searing away alliances one explosion at a time. Ukraine's tactical brilliance reveals an unexpected shift. Energy, once Putin's ace card for bullying Europe, now ensnares him in a geoeconomic snare. His energy blackmail crumbles, brothers in arms face ruin or betrayal. Druzhba's shutdown compels nations to adopt the European Union's strict policies, dismantling the diplomatic fortress Putin relied on. This strike ignites a domino fury across Russia's gears of war and daily life. It morphs a brewing fuel panic into a spark for widespread upheaval. Before Druzhba's boom, the nation grappled with gaping gas voids. Unmanned drone raids shredded refinery abilities, leaving crude oil stranded, unusable for putting petrol or diesel into motion. The stark proof emerges from annexed Crimea. By September 2025, it imposed gasoline limits in Russian-controlled zones. What does this signify? A key war hub can't even fuel its locals. Humiliation peaks with leaked visuals. Night raids in Yalta showed desperate theft from parked cars, fingers slick with desperation, the putrid reek of siphoned gas clinging to clothes. When a regime pushes citizens to pilfer from neighbors, the promise of protection shatters. It's decay beyond economics, a tactile betrayal felt in shaking hands queuing for salvation. Druzhba amplifies this ordeal. Hobbled pipes and battered refineries push Moscow to rail tankers as backup. Yet Ukraine's reach targets even these tracks. Think sabotaged incidents, like overturned burners in Perm, infernos lighting skies with a roar, flaming tankers melting into twisted metal heaps. Pipelines falter. Refineries lie in ruins. Rails burn unpredictably. This trio constriction starves the front lines of power. Troops halt, gears grind to silence. But what forbidden vulnerabilities does this expose in Putin's machine? Will the next igniting blow uncover secrets that could topple it all? The failure to protect vital infrastructure signals a societal collapse far greater than economic struggles. The attack on Druzhba has plunged Russia into chaos. Once the pipelines and refineries were hit, the government's plan B was to rely on rail transport. But now, Ukraine's operations target this backup too, exposing the cracks in Russia's logistical defenses. Imagine the deafening sound of heavily loaded tankers overturning on unstable rails, flames licking the night sky of the Perm region. Incidents like these aren't accidents, they're acts of sabotage. The pipelines are shut, refineries are wrecked, and now, the railway system is a battlefield. This triple blockade is suffocating Putin's war effort. Without fuel, tanks halt, trucks stand still. The military machine is grinding to a halt. Putin's grip on control is slipping, his soldiers and citizens are feeling it. This crisis extends beyond the battlefield. Roads lined with long queues of anxious motorists, desperate for gasoline, reveal a nation on the brink. The core blow? It hits Transneft, the state giant that controls all Russia's oil arteries. Once considered untouchable, the company now proves vulnerable, unable to shield critical pipelines from Ukrainian saboteurs. This revelation devastates trust. Transneft's reputation crumbles along with its management. The Kremlin's confidence in its energy fortress shatters. Massive budgets are now needed to repair the damage, but legal battles await. Contracts and compensation claims threaten to drown the company in fines. The entire system is unraveling, threatening to cripple Russia's economy and weaken Putin's grip from within. This isn't just about lost revenue. It's a deep wound in the nation's psyche, exposing the fragility of the very infrastructure that sustains their power. As pipelines remain silent and refineries stay dark, the true cost, the loss of control, the crumbling trust, becomes painfully clear. How long can Russia cling to its illusions of strength when even its backbone begins to fracture beneath Ukrainian strikes? The attack on the Druzhba pipeline has shaken the very foundation of Russia's political and economic stability. Since the start of the conflict, the Kremlin insisted that the Russian economy remained resilient, despite harsh Western sanctions. But this sabotage struck at the core of that claim. With Russia's primary moneymaker, oil exports, crippled, the entire system teeters on the edge of collapse. Imagine the shockwaves. Oligarchs, who rely on the steady flow of wealth, begin to whisper their fears. Some voice their concerns openly. They press Putin, demanding protection for their assets and assurances that the flow will resume. As the pipeline's destruction reveals the fragility beneath Russia's economic armor, confidence evaporates among the elite. Panic spreads quietly through corridors of power. This episode isn't just a domestic crisis, it's a blow to Russia's international reputation. Oil, a global commodity, depends on trust and stability. When a nation cannot defend its critical infrastructure, it loses its credibility. Long-term deals with countries like China and India are now in jeopardy. They start to demand better terms, factoring in potential instability, and requesting discounts. But here's the twist, the destroyed pipeline, Druzhba, doesn't physically deliver oil to those Asian giants. It was built to supply Europe alone. Oil meant for Asia moves through different routes, like the Eastern ESPO pipeline or tankers from Baltic and Black Sea ports. So why does the explosion send shockwaves across Asia? Because the nightmare of diversion is now a looming reality. Suddenly, 70 million tons of Russian oil have nowhere to go. The pipeline is broken, the oil is stranded. Putin faces a brutal choice: shut down Siberian wells and let the oil drown in storage, or load the ships, at any cost, and flood Asian markets. The giant market at their doorstep is now a trap for Russia. The flood of cheap, stranded oil will push down prices. The balance of power shifts. China and India see a colossal opportunity. And for Russia? It's a race against time to unload this ocean of oil, before prices plummet, and the economy spirals further into chaos. The once reliable energy giant is suddenly at risk of becoming a discarded relic of a broken system. Could this be the beginning of Russia's energy empire crumbling? The answer lies in the unfolding chaos, and the ultimate cost of such a disastrous act of sabotage. The collapse of the Druzhba pipeline has turned geopolitical chess into a high-stakes game, offering Beijing and New Delhi unprecedented leverage over Moscow. Contrary to Western narratives of an ideological brotherhood, China sees Russia merely as a source of raw materials and a tool to distract the West. Beijing continues to purchase Russian oil, at steep discounts of 20 to 30% below Brent prices. This massive price cut is a secret weapon, fueling Chinese industry with cheap energy. As Russia's only remaining outlet for its oil, the shutdown of Druzhba makes Moscow even more desperate to sell what remains. With limited options, Russia is forced to accept even deeper discounts, effectively draining its resources at an alarming rate. But there's a catch: China pays for this oil in its own currency, the yuan, not in dollars or euros. This currency is barely convertible and cannot be used by Russia to buy weapons or advanced technology on international markets. Instead, Moscow is left with a vast stockpile of yuan, billions of dollars worth, that can only buy Chinese goods. In essence, Russia has become a resource colony, a satellite economy tethered to China's financial system. Yet, even China draws the line at losing Western markets. Long border queues at Kazakhstan and the threat of secondary sanctions from the West have made Beijing cautious. They enjoy cheap Russian oil but cannot afford to jeopardize access to lucrative Western trade. So, China operates quietly, restraining its state banks, avoiding risky shadow fleet operations, and treats Putin's boasts of mutual dependence with icy silence. They are salvaging value from a sinking ship, not trying to save it. Meanwhile, India's role grows even more intriguing and aggravating. Before the conflict, India imported almost no Russian oil. Now, it stands among Moscow's biggest buyers. But this isn't an alliance, it's a masterclass in resource laundering. India refines the inexpensive Russian crude domestically, then ships the processed fuel back to Europe labeled as Indian-made diesel. This clever maneuver allows Europe to quietly re-import Russian oil through the back door, sidestepping sanctions, and all while feeding India's economy. The real winner here? India, reaping the profits of a global energy game masterfully played. In this twisted chain of events, Moscow's strategic position crumbles. Its riches are siphoned off, its influence diminishes, and its resources are squandered on the hope of patching a collapsing empire. Could this be the ultimate end of Russia's energy dominance? Or is there a further shocking twist waiting just beyond the horizon? Russia faces a harsh financial trap after the attack. It pays for its oil with the Chinese currency, the yuan. But the yuan has low international convertibility. It can't be used to buy weapons or advanced technology. Instead, it can only purchase Chinese goods. Now, Russia holds billions of dollars worth of yuan, money it cannot spend. This paradox leaves Russia wealthy in resources but impoverished in influence. Every barrel of oil sold to India inflates the mountain of yuan they hold, yet yields nothing useful. The more oil Russia unloads, the more its economic chains tighten. They're caught in a trap, overflowing with worthless currency, powerless to leverage their wealth for military or technological strength. Druzhba was more than just oil, it was a symbol of Putin's dream. A tool to split the West and dominate Eastern Europe. Ukraine's sabotage shattered that aspiration instantly, striking at Russia's core. The attack didn't just cripple pipelines, it shattered Russia's political and economic backbone. Today, Russia is crumbling from three directions. Abroad, its allies are trembling, turning away in fear. Domestically, citizens see their fuel supplies vanish, hopes of stability slipping through their fingers. Major state monopolies like Transneft failed to protect their vital arteries, exposing the real depth of Russia's systemic vulnerabilities. This isn't just a pipeline shutdown, it's a fatal blow to Putin's reputation and control. As Putin's treasury runs dry, chaos spreads. The economy is drowning in hardship and despair. His empire, built on oil and influence, is collapsing from within. This isn't merely about pipelines, it's a verdict of geoeconomic disaster. Putin's credibility, his power, are evaporating inside his own borders. Now, the question looms, what desperate move will Russia make next? Will they risk everything to hold on? Or will this chaos push them into unthinkable actions? Share your thoughts below. Stay tuned for the future, subscribe, turn on notifications, and follow along as this story unfolds. The world is watching.